Alright, here we are in lesson 4, least common multiple, LCM, and adding and subtracting fractions. So the first part is about finding the least common multiple. So remember, least is smallest, common is again what they share, and now a multiple is different than a factor, alright? People always ask you, well, what are the multiples of 2 and the multiples of 5? Alright, so multiples are pretty much, counting by a number. So if you want to write yourself a little note about what multiples are. So multiples are, like an example would be counting by a number, like counting by 2's, or counting by 5's. So we'll see in the first example here, and they want us to find the least common multiple of 5 and 10. So multiples of 5, let's see, we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, and you could keep going forever and ever. Multiples of 10 would be like 10, 20, 30, and we want the least common, so the smallest, which would be 10 here, so that would be our LCM. If we're looking at 6 and 8, if we start listing multiples of 6, let's see, we have 6, 12, 18, 24, and we could keep going, but we can probably stop there. 8, I have 8, 16, 24, 32. We can see here I've hit a smallest one that they share, which would be 24. So that means our LCM is 24. And now between 10 and 15, this is very similar to number 1. If I list the multiples of 10, we know it's 10, 20, 30, etc. 15, let's see, I have 15, 30, 45. You can see that our smallest one they share would be 30. So our least common multiple would be 30. Okay, so we're going to use those to add and subtract fractions. And it says when adding or subtracting fractions, you need a common denominator. Highlight it, circle it, do something with this. You need to remember this forever, that you need a common denominator. So if we look at example 4 here, 2 ninths plus 5 ninths, they already have a common denominator. So we just add across the top. 2 plus 5 is 7, so we get 7 ninths. Here, same thing. They have a common denominator of 8, so we just have to do 7 minus 3, which is 4/8, but we need to simplify. And 4/8 we should know is 1/2. On number 6 here, we have 3/4 plus 2/3, so stop. No common denominator, so we need to make one. So the least common multiple of 4 and 3, well, they both can multiply to make 12. So we need to make the denominator be 12. How do we get from 4 to 12? We multiply by 3 on the bottom and on the top. 3 times 3 gives us 9, so we have 9 twelfths. How do we get from 3 to 12? 3 times 4 gives us 12, so we have to multiply by 4 on the top. 4 times 2 is 8. So now we add 9 plus 8, and we get 17 twelfths, which cannot be simplified, so we can leave it like that. Alright, moving down, we've got some more examples here. 7/8 minus 2/3. No common denominator, so we're going to make one. And our common denominator here could be 24. So you can go ahead and put in some blank ones with 24. Oh, that's not 24. Fix that. Okay, so how do we get from 8 to 24? When we multiply 8 times 3 gives us 24, so we multiply by 3 on the top as well. 7 times 3 is 21. Now how do we get from 3 to 24? We multiply by 8, so we multiply by the 8 on the top. 2 times 8 is 16, so now we just subtract across the top only. 21 minus 16 is 5, so we have 5/24. Number 8 here, we have 5/6 minus 3/4. So we're looking at 6 and 4. Well, we know 6 times 4 is 24, but let's go smaller. We know that they both go into 12, so we can make the common denominator 12 for both of them. How do we get from 6 to 12? We multiply by 2. So we multiply by 2 on the top. 2 times 5 is 10. How do we get from 4 to 12? We multiply by 3. So you multiply by 3 on the top. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus minus 9 is 1. So we end up with 1/12. So now probably some of you are probably wondering, well, what happens if we accidentally made the common denominator 24? That is perfectly fine. You would just have more simplifying to do in the end. Alright, and then the last one on this page, we have 1/2 plus 3/8. So this one's a little easier for us to see. We're going to make both of these be 8ths. So we don't have to change the second one at all, just the first one. How do we get from 2 to 8? We multiply by 4. 4 times 1 gives us 4, so we have 4 plus 3 gives us 7/8. Alright, so if we keep going here, we're going to flip to the next page, and we're going to talk about adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So very similar to what we did on the other page. So the trick with mixed numbers is, for now, just leave the whole number by itself, and we're going to do those separately. So I'm just going to kind of circle them. We're only going to do the first 3 problems. Alright, so those will be separate. So if we do the whole numbers first, let's go through and do all of them. So here we have 3 plus 2. So 3 plus 2 gives us 5. Here we have 8 minus 3. So 8 minus 3 also gives us 5. And then here in our last one we have 4 minus 3, which gives us 1. Okay, so the whole numbers are taken care of. So now let's talk about these fractions. So we have 1/8 plus 5/8. And they already have a common denominator. That's so nice of them. 5 plus 1 is 6 divided by 8. So now we need to simplify, so we can divide both of them by 2. So we get 3/4. So now the last thing you have to do is you need to put it all together. So our final answer would be 5 from our whole number and 3/4. Okay. Number 11 here, we got to work with our fractions a little bit. We've got 3/5 minus 1/4. So we need a common denominator, and I'm going to make them both be over 20. How do we get from 5 to 20? Well, we multiply by 4, so we have to do that to the top here too. 3 times 4 is 12. How do we get from 4 to 20? We multiply by 5 on the top and on the bottom, and 1 times 5 gives us 5. So we have 12 minus 5, which is 7/20. So then remember, we got to go back up and put it all together. Our whole number was 5, and then we had 7/20. Then our last one here, got to work with our fractions. We've got 5/6 minus 3/4. So common denominator, I'm going to make them out of 12. How do we get from 6 to 12? We multiply by 2. Multiply 5 by 2, so we get 10. How do we get from 4 to 12? We multiply by 3, so I'm going to multiply by 3 on the top, and 3 times 3 is 9. So we have 10 minus 9, which is 1/12. So now when we put it all together at the top, we get 1 and 1/12. Okay, so I know that was a bit much. We're going to do some more practice all together in class tomorrow, so make sure you bring any questions you have to class.